Welcome, my name is Felix Haller. In the last video, we talked about what you can do to create compelling business presentations by focusing on the storyline. In this video, we're going to talk about one simple tactic that will make all the difference for your slides. If you want your slides to be better than 95% of all slides, you have to follow this one simple tactic. And I'm going to explain to you the why of it, how you can do that in your own presentations, and then we're going to do one exercise, practical exercise for you to hone your skills and to make sure that you implement this tactic in your own presentations. Before we dive into this tactic, please like this video and subscribe now to this channel. First, the most important thing about a slide, a business presentation slide, is being clear on the message. You need to be crystal clear what the particular message of this slide is, and then convey it to your audience in clear, concise, and compelling way. If your audience is confused about the message of your slide, you lost them. So instead of putting a lot of content on a slide, interesting charts, it's more important to have a clear, concise message. And the way you convey your message on a slide is by putting it in the slide header. The slide header, which is the top of the slide, is the first piece of information your audience sees. And it's the most important element on a slide. If you compare two slides, one slide has interesting charts, interesting bullets on a slide, but doesn't have a message, doesn't have a slide header. And compare that to a slide that just has a compelling, concise, insightful slide title in the header. Which slide would you prefer? I personally would prefer the slide that has the message in the header, because that's the only purpose you're showing that slide, to convince your audience of your message. If your audience agrees with your message, you've achieved your objective. What I want you to take away from this section is to be crystal clear on your slides message and making sure that your audience goes away with that message. Next, I want to show you a couple of examples, what not to do and what to do in terms of your slides message, how to be crystal clear and how to convey your message. Like I said, compelling slides have in common that they're clear on the slides message. Looking at this example here, a slide from an Alteryx presentation, in my opinion, it's fairly unclear what the slides message is. The title or the slide's header states Analytic Market Landscape, which is a fairly descriptive title. It says what you see on this slide, but it doesn't tell you the so what, the why. Why should we care? And why is there some important information on this slide? They potentially could be saying a couple messages. The message could be Alteryx is playing along the process chain from catalog preparation towards predictive and prescriptive. Or they could be saying there are a lot of competitors in our market. Or they could be saying we're the only player that plays along the whole chain while others are more targeted and offer point solutions. Whatever the message is, it's important that the message is clear to you and to your audience. And I think on this slide, it is unclear, and the audience has to guess what you mean with the slide, what your so what is. How do we make sure that our slides message is clear? There are three factors of effective slide titles. They're succinct, they're specific, and they're insightful. I want to go through each of these examples just to share with you what that means in very specific terms. The first point, succinct. It's always better to have a shorter message. In this example, our competitors' prices are cheaper is way more succinct and way more to the point than the initial example here on the left-hand side. The second point, the more specific your message, the better. Meaning using metrics, numbers, quantifying your message, your recommendation. Instead of saying the LED market has grown, it's stronger to say the US LED market has grown 5% yearly in the past 3 years, or whatever you want to highlight. And lastly, slides should be insightful. They should add value to the audience. They should provide a so what. If your message is pretty straightforward and everybody already agrees with that message, then why are you even showing it? So instead of saying online sales are low and assuming that the audience already knows that, you could say we should invest and increase our online sales, which is a point of view, which is something you would likely have to defend or provide good argumentation for, but that adds value to your audience instead of sharing information that's already obvious for everybody. Next, I want you to do an exercise to hone your skills to make sure that you actually apply this tactic going forward. Always make sure that you have a clear, succinct, specific, and insightful slide title. And that is also sometimes called an action title, which is focused on the action that is required or the next steps, as opposed to a descriptive title. Now I would ask you to look at the slide and pause the video for 15-30 seconds and come up with 1 or 2 specific, succinct, and insightful action titles. And then we'll come back and I'll share with you a couple examples I would have come up with. Let's look at a couple potential titles for this slide. The first one, Global Widget Market Share. This is a fairly weak title. It simply shows you what the data is, but it doesn't give you any insight into the so what of the slide. Like anything good, anything bad, surprising that we could highlight here. The second one, Company A is the market leader, is a tad better. It is a more insightful statement. It shares with us that we are leading the market, which is something positive. But I think it's not as specific. It doesn't show any data. Are we leading by a lot? Are we not leading by a lot? Is it 40%, 20%? And I think that's where the third option shines, where we mention a specific metric, 40% market share in North America. Another fairly decent title would be number 4, Company A leads in the US but lacks in other geographies. Here we're comparing different regions, while number 3 only focuses on the North America market. And this is an important point. There isn't necessarily one perfect action title. There are a lot of different options possible here, depending on what you want to highlight. Do you want to more focus on the North America market, which is a bigger market overall? It might be our home market. Or do you want to more highlight non-US, more Europe or APAC? And that's why it's so important to have a clear action title on your slide, because that way your audience knows right away what you are arguing for and what your message is among a multitude of possible messages. Nevertheless, whatever your message is, you want to make sure that it is specific and an action title that provides value to the audience. Let's do one more quick example. Similar to the previous exercise, please stop the video now and take 15 seconds, 30 seconds to come up with your own potential action titles. Welcome back. Here on the right side, you see a couple potential action titles. The first one, company revenue, is again fairly descriptive. It simply says what the data is, but it doesn't give you any insights. The next point, company revenue growth CAGR, is basically the same. It just shows us a little bit more about what the data is, but it doesn't give us any information about a so what. Anything surprising, interesting, that helps us make better decisions or whatever our goal is here. The next point, 30% of locations have increased their revenues. I think that's a very interesting point. We're using data, a specific metric. 60% of locations are better or have increased their revenues as opposed to 40% who have seen declining revenues. And the next point, location 1 has experienced significant growth over 40% yearly over the last 4 years, which could also be a decent, good action title. I would probably think here the option 3 is a tad better because it focuses on more than just one location. I feel like if our message was number 4, that location 1 has experienced significant growth, we would probably show a different chart because I think we don't necessarily need to show all the 20 locations if we just want to highlight one specific location. I think it would be more powerful to show location 1's growth and then compare it to the average or a couple percentiles of locations instead of showing it all if we wanted to say message 4. What have we learned? We learned that the slide's message is the most important factor for an effective presentation slide. You should put your slide's message in the slide's header and make sure that the message is an action title that is succinct, specific, and insightful. That way, you are very clear on what you're conveying to your audience, and your audience knows right away what your slide's message is and what you're arguing for, which is way more important than creating fancy content and fancy charts. If you like this content, please hit the like button now and subscribe to my channel. Thanks a lot and have a good day. Thanks for watching. If you want to get more advice like this, practical and concise tactics that help you succeed in your career from a former manager at Bain Company, hit the subscribe button now to get weekly updates and weekly videos.